Hey, what's up? My name's Alea. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. So today we're going to be talking about romance book recommendations because today is Valentine's Day. And you know, the day before Valentine's Day is the day for the girls. And so I figured because of Valentine's Day, it would be fitting to give you all of my updated romance book recommendations because it's been quite a few years since I told you what all my favorite romance books are. And because it's the season of love, I thought that it would be fitting to talk about some smut, especially, monster smut, escaped prison convict smut. There's nothing in this mug. So without any further ado, let's get into the book recommendations. So the first book I wanted to recommend to you is called Orc in the Mountain, and this is one that's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's a recent release, and it's about this man who's an orc, and he is kind of like the Grinch, it's set in the winter, he's up in his little mountain, in his little cave, avoiding everybody because it's the orc mating season, and every 5 years the orcs can get married, but their relationship has to be approved by their orc god. And 5 years ago, he got rejected at the mating ceremony. And it was like really sad. This human girl said, "No, I don't like you like that, King. I don't want to marry you." And he got really like butthurt and sad about it. And so now, fast forward, it's 5 years later, the mating ceremony has come up again, and there's this human woman, and her name, I already forgot. I want to say Daisy. Anyways, I'm going to call her Daisy. Miss Daisy is a human girl. She's new to the orc village. She moved there because she had like a really bad breakup, and her ex-man was like really creepy and probably a human and probably a wiener, and she moved to the orc village to like have a fresh little start or whatever. And so she gets a job at this bakery, and the book opens with her like frosting a little cake. She's just like doing her little thing. Well, she's got this boss who's an orc, and he hits on her, and it's gross, and he makes like weird comments about her body, and she's like, "Ew, I don't like you like that, King. I'm just here to make that bread." You know what I'm saying? Make that bread, make that cake, make that money, honey. And he is like, "Well, I like want to marry you at the mating ceremony." And he gets down on one knee and proposes to her after she already told him no. And she's like, "Dude, no, leave me alone." But he doesn't like take no for an answer. And so she's freaked out, and she's like, "Well, the only way I can get away from this man is to cash in my vacation days and go hike a mountain." And she is the kind of girly where she's got like, all these different hobbies, but she can't commit to anything. She's never had like one consistent career path or anything. She's kind of just like bouncing from one thing to the next. And one of the things she used to like to do was go and like backpack and hike and stuff like that. And so she's got all this old like camping gear and hiking gear in her closet, so she goes and digs it out. She goes and hikes this mountain. She's like, "It'll be great, I'll go like be in nature and whatever, and I'll come back, the ceremony shit'll be done, and I can just like find another job, it'll be fine." But what she doesn't know is that the mountains up there in the orc village, they're kind of dangerous, and she doesn't know where she's going. Girly Pop doesn't have a map at all. And so she gets up there and runs into Mr. Grinchy in his little cave, who's also hiding from the mating season. And they have like a little enemies to lovers moment. And he basically like saves her in the storm. And she gets like lost in the mountain, and he saves her life and like stitches up her leg because she's hurt and stuff. And so it also has that trope that I really like of like one main character is sick or injured or whatever, and the other one like nurses them back to health. And it's only one bed trope, close proximity, they're in this isolated cave away from town, and they end up getting to know each other. It's very cute. The main guy, he is very stoic, very broody, but also like incredibly sweet to her, and teaches her how he like gardens up there, teaches her how to weave baskets. He buys clothes for her because his clothes are too big for her to wear. He fixes up her leg, and he also has magic powers as well. It's very cool. It also has really good like cozy small town wintry vibes up in this like orc village, and it's kind of set during like the holidays as well, like Christmas time. So, you know, it's past Christmas now, but it is a really good monster romance set in the winter if you're looking for that. And then the next two I wanted to recommend are Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark. So these are the first two in a series, and this series is about serial killers. And you probably heard about the series because it was really big on Book Talk as well. But the third book comes out this month in February, and so it might be a good time to like read the first couple books and then pick up book 3. So book 1 is following Salone and the other guy who I forgot his name, and basically they're both serial killers who kill other serial killers, and they end up having this encounter where he saves her life basically after she's killed a guy and has gotten like locked in a cage in the guy's basement, and then she killed him, and now she's stuck in there because the key is on his dead rotten corpse that's like across the room, and the maggots are coming for her. The stench is bad. She's stuck in this hot ass basement in like Louisiana with a corpse that she just murdered. It's pretty rough. And this guy, he like shows up at the basement because he was there to kill the same dude. And they realize that they've been like going after similar people for a while because they both hunt like predators and people like that who are really creepy. And they've just been like missing each other each time. Like one of them will get there before the other one. And so they basically come up with this little game. Well, he does, because he thinks that she's the hottest thing he's ever seen. Like the hottest thing since peanut butter and jelly. And so he's like, you know, I want to see this girl again. And I know if I don't like make some game or make some deal with her or whatever, then I'm never going to see her again. She's just going to vanish. And he's down bad. So he's like, hey, like girly pop, I'll take you out of that cage and save your life if you'll come and like have lunch with me. And she's like, okay, fine, because I was going to fucking die, king. I'll eat fries with you, you weirdo. And then he's like, so what if we play a little game where like my brother will give us a location and we have to go there once a year and figure out who the predator is in town and kill them, and whoever kills them first wins the game. And Miss Salone is like, you know, I've never met another killer like this. Like, most people don't understand my dark and broody side. And so she's like, fine, we can do it. His name's Rowan, I just remembered. She's like, sure, Rowan, we'll go, like, hunt killers together, you weirdo, but only once a year. And so they do. So once a year they see each other and, like, go and kill people. And the story goes from there. They end up having like a very fun and spicy relationship. There's really good banter. There's really good killing scenes. If you like horror novels and you want to get into romance, I think you would like this. If you like horror novels with serial killers, I think you would like this. If you like female serial killers, you're going to love Salone because she's a queen. If you're into like creepy eyeball stuff like I am, then you're going to love her. So highly recommend this. Also, the second book is really good as well. It's following the brother of the guy from book 1 and then the best friend of our main girl from book 1, and they end up getting together. And he is like a hired killer, and he also cleans up crime scenes, but crime scenes where like shady people have killed somebody and want to cover it up, they call him in, and he goes and cleans up other people's messes when they've murdered people on accident or on purpose, and makes it look like it never happened. And so he's kind of a badass. He's got tattoos. He's got a very, like, messed up past with his dad, who was really abusive. And he's been through some shit, and he's killed a lot of people, frankly. And then our main girly pop, she also kills people. And similar to the people in book 1, she likes to kill, like, creepy predator men in particular. And so the two of them have some pretty steamy chemistry and also have really good banter. So if you're into banter and dark shit and murder, then I think you would like this. So anyways, just a little fun Valentine's Day reading. This might be a really good series to read if you're like single on Valentine's Day and you're feeling some type of way about it. Honey, start this trilogy, because it's gonna ensure that you have a really fun Valentine's Day week, honestly. And then next up, I want to tell you about another series that I think you'd really like. And it's a prison romance series by Sophie Jordan, and nobody ever talks about this series, and frankly, it's criminal. So book 1 is called All Chained Up by Sophie Jordan. First of all, let's just take a minute. This man, okay, what does he have going on? Hot, tan, sexy dragon tattoo, is currently a prisoner. And basically this is a romance between a woman who's a nurse at this prison called Devil's Rock and this guy Knox Callahan, who is one of the prisoners there, who gets in a lot of prison fights and ends up in their nurse's office a lot. And one day there's some really creepy shit going on with some of the new inmates who are like creepy, druggy young guys. And they're a little cray-cray. And they come up with this little scheme in the prison yard that they're going to go break into the nurse's station because they heard that there's a hot new nurse girl in there and they want to do disgusting things to her. And old Knox, our boy, he hears about this little scheme they're scheming and he's like, over my dead body, because he knows the nurse lady, he's been in to see her before, and she's like the only person who doesn't treat him like he's a piece of shit. Like, she treats him like a human being. What a concept. Anyway, she's really sweet, and her name is Briar. And anyways, so old Knox decides that he's gonna go and make sure that our girly pop Briar doesn't get hurt by these weirdos, and the story basically goes from there. And this book had me kicking my little feet. I was gagged. I was in a chokehold by this man right here. It's so good. It's on the darker side because of all the prison stuff, but it's really good. And the spicy scenes are hella spicy. There's a scene in here with ice cream. Ooh, honey. Honey. Oh my god. It says sizzling hot read on the front. They couldn't have been more right. So this is fabulous. Love to see it. But I will say this was written in like the early 2000s. What's the date? 2016. Okay, and so be aware of that going in, that the writing, it feels a little 2016 sometimes, but it's still really good. And then the sequel to that is called Hell Breaks Loose, and this one is about a guy that our boy Knox was friends with in the prison in this one, and he breaks out of jail and then ends up having a romance with the daughter of the President of the United States. Hello? I'm sorry, but that's absolutely outrageous. But it's so good. The sexual tension in this book is incredible, and there's a lot happening. Our main guy, he is super hot. He had a really rough childhood, really bad parents, just abusive, druggies, not supportive at all. He's got a brother who is a total creep and kidnapped the president's daughter, and he ends up breaking out of prison, going to see his brother, and then he finds out that they have this girl in the back, and he's like, dude, no, hell no. Do you know who this girl is? Like, what are you doing? Super creepy. And he basically saves her, and then they have a romance. So it's like a captor-captive situation, enemies to lovers. She thinks he's really hot, but she's like, is this guy gonna kill me? Like, what the hell? She knows that all these dudes in this house that she's trapped in are all like bad news bears, but she feels like he's the only one that she can trust even a little bit with her life. And the story goes from there. It's incredible. It's also like forced proximity, only one bed. Incredible. It's so good. It's so good. Nobody ever talks about this book. Ever. I've never heard anyone ever talk about this book in my life. And I'm telling you, you need to read it because it's fabulous. Next up, we have a couple monster romances. So the first one I wanted to tell you about is called Snowden with the Demon. This one's on Kindle Unlimited. And it's about this girl who works at a hotel. And she realizes that there might be like a spooky entity in this hotel. And the story kind of goes from there. And our main guy is a demon, and he got bound to the hotel by a witch centuries ago because he refused to help her like kill a bunch of people and eradicate a town. And so she was like a shitty person, and she tied him to the hotel, and he's an immortal demon, and so he's been living in this hotel for years, but he's invisible, so people have no idea that he's like living in the walls basically. And he has taken a liking to this lady who works there, and they end up having like a spicy little romance, and it's very cute. She also has like kind of a shitty family, and he kind of helps her navigate that. And she in turn helps him like break the spell that forces him to stay at the hotel. It's very cute. Very spicy though. but I really liked it. That was fun. Again, another one that's like kind of Christmassy a little bit, but it's set during winter and they get like snowed in at this hotel, and so it definitely has like the winter vibes if you're looking for that. And then next up we have Hauntings and Company. So this is another monster romance, and we're following this woman. She's a warlock, and she has this god of Cthulhu that's one of the like eldritch gods, and it's tied to her and like gives her the power to like be a warlock. And because of that, she's having a really hard time finding a job, because people in this society, a lot of times if you are like a magic wielder, they do this test during job interviews where they like look into your mind. And the last job interview she had, they did that, and this guy looked in her mind and completely flipped out when he saw like the dark god that's like attached to her mind, and basically called her like an abomination, and she hasn't been able to get employed since then. And so she's getting really desperate. And then we're also finding this guy, and his name is Marcus, and he is a Zilf, which basically means that he is incredibly powerful. He's a monster, and he has like tentacles on his face, like Davy Jones, you know what I'm saying? And he basically has like mind control powers, and it's like super dangerous, and so people don't trust him, and he's labeled as like an evil monster in this society. And so he has started his own business called Hauntings and Company, where he has all these employees who are also monsters that are like difficult to employ, or like people think they're dangerous and don't want to give them jobs. So he has kind of created this like found family at his company for people who don't have a place anywhere else in society. And it's really sweet. He's a really good guy. He's a really smart businessman, and he has created this service where he and his employees like find hard to get materials to use in like potions and things like that, and they like ethically source them and then sell them to other magic users. And so he's got this new business and he's trying to grow it and stuff, but he's got this really bad image because of the kind of monster that he is, and people call his race like part of the destroyers. And anyways, they get like a really bad rap. So basically his second in command says, hey, you should get an assistant for the company's image to like help make us look more approachable, and find somebody who looks more human, and maybe that will help us like get business. And so that's what they do. And his second in command guy finds this lady Ophelia, who's the warlock, and as soon as Marcus sees her, he's like love at first sight. And he's like, oh my god, she's perfect for the job, but also I think I'm in love with her already. And then he hires her, and they have this like boss employee forbidden romance going on, and they both are really powerful. And so sometimes during like spicy scenes there's like magic involved, and it's quite steamy, I will say, and I absolutely loved it. They have really good banter. Marcus is incredibly kind to her and treats her like a princess, exactly like she deserves, and it's fabulous. If you are wanting a monster romance that has monsters that are maybe a little bit more unique, I would highly recommend this, because there's a ton of different creatures and monsters in here that I've never seen anywhere else, and the writing is just really fun. It's really funny, and I highly recommend it. And then the next one I want to tell you about is called The Stone and the Star, and this is a novella, and we're following a woman who is an artist. I think she makes like pottery and stuff, and she's living on campus, and it's like summertime, so there's hardly anybody on this like university campus, and she realizes that there's this building next door to where she lives that has gargoyles on the top. And so when she's like walking by, she talks to the gargoyle and stuff, and there's one in particular that's like really big, and she thinks it's really cool. And then one day she's like having a spicy moment, and she's like doing some spicy stuff, by herself, wink wink, and she's like looking out the window at this gargoyle while she's like doing it to herself, and he is actually like alive. He's like a real gargoyle monster guy, and he sees this, and he's been watching her this whole time, and he's like into her, but he's like, okay, I can't approach her without her like completely flipping out. He's like a 7-foot tall gargoyle guy, and he also has like no memory of his past. He thinks he's like the only gargoyle left on Earth, and he's never met anybody else of his kind. And so they end up meeting because he ends up saving her when she gets like attacked by a creepy man on her way home one night, and he saves her life. and he nurses her back to health because she's hurt. And it's really good. It's really fun. It's definitely really good, and it's really, really short too. So I think that's a really fun one to read if you're looking for a monster romance to read for Valentine's Day, because it's on Kindle Unlimited and it's really fast to get through and it's really fun. So definitely recommend that. And then next I want to talk about How to Marry a Lich. So this is by the same author who wrote Hauntings and Company, and she's a newer author I've discovered in the last year, and I really like her. And she writes a lot of like funky monster romances, but they're all set in the same like fantasy world of Kingsfall. And so if you hop in like at any point, that's fine. You'll probably end up like seeing characters from some of the other books, but it's not a series by any means. They're all like companion novels, if that makes sense. So this one, How to Marry a Lich, is my favorite one I've read from her so far. And we're following this guy who's a lich, and he wears this like creepy witch doctor mask, and he's an immortal basically. He's been alive for a really long time. He's got this like magical manor in the woods, and he's got this like glamour thing on the outside that makes it look like a dilapidated house so nobody messes with it. And there's this girl, and her name's Dahlia. She's an elf, and she comes around the manor because he has like a garden out front, and she thinks it's really pretty, and so she likes to go hang out in the garden and read because she thinks that the house is like totally deserted. And then one day she shows up in the garden, and she's being chased by a man who's trying to kill her. And basically he proposed to her and she turned him down, and so he's coming after her. And our lich guy has been watching her for years in his garden out the window, and he is kind of taken a liking to her. And so he decides he's not going to let that stand, and he's sure as hell not going to let some weirdo kill her on his property. And so he takes the guy out. And the story goes from there, and he takes her in and basically like wants to make sure she's okay and stuff because she had like a near-death experience in his front lawn. And so that's how they kind of end up meeting. And then he basically begs her not to leave, and he realizes that she's got some demons that she's running from, and he has the power to protect her from them. And it's really good. It's one of my faves. There's so much cool magic stuff in here. There's also a lot of like eldritch magic in here, and she also has like a family curse that she's dealing with. There's also these people who live in his house that are kind of like not servants, but there's like a maid and like a gardener and different people, and there are also different magical creatures that he has like brought back to life because he has really strong necromancy powers. So like the gardener is like a zombie guy, and there's a banshee, and all these other cool creatures, and they're all really sweet. He's got like this awesome found family element going on with like the people who work for him, and he treats them really well, and he treats her really well. And again, very spicy, very magical. One of my faves of all time. If you like necromancy stuff, or like romances that have a lot of magic and like magic fight scenes and stuff, I think you would really enjoy this. It's one of like my favorite books that I read of last year. And then next I wanted to recommend Done and Dusted. So this is the first in a cowboy romance series, and basically we're following this woman who is a horse rider professionally, and she had a horse riding accident where she got hurt really bad, and so she hasn't been able to race anymore in like the rodeo and stuff. And so she ends up moving back to her hometown in Wyoming, and her family owns this big ranch, and so she's going home to work on the ranch, and there's this man who lives there, and it's like her older brother's best friend. They've known each other since they were kids, and he's working for her family now on the ranch, and so they run into each other a lot, and so they end up having a little romance going on. And it's a brother's best friend, enemies to lovers, kind of not really a second chance romance, but I think he always kind of liked her, and I think she didn't really see him that way. She always kind of felt like they were enemies because he would tease her a lot and stuff. And they have a very cute romance. And I also really like book 2 in this series, Swift and Saddled. That one follows her brother and this lady who's an interior designer who comes to town that he hires, and they have a really good romance too. I think I actually like book 2 a little bit better than book 1, but the series overall is really, really fun if you're looking for a good cowboy romance. And then I also really wanted to recommend Role Playing. This is one that I read last winter, It also has like cozy winter vibes, and we're following two main characters who are like middle-aged, which is kind of nice to see. And the woman has a son, and she's a single mom. Her ex was a piece of shit, and she's kind of just like trying to make it on her own. And in her free time, she likes to play video games online, and she ends up meeting a guy online in like a online role-playing video game that they play together, and his online name is Otter, and so she has no idea who he is in real life. And come to find out, they live in the same town, and so she kind of like tries to avoid the people in the town because a lot of them like all went to high school together, and it's very cliquey and weird, and they're not very nice to her, and a lot of the women are like really fake. And so people are like encouraging her, now that she's like gone through this bad divorce, to like get out and like go meet some people, you know, make some friends, see if you can like find a new man, you know, just get out of your like hermit cave essentially. And so she does, and at a party she ends up meeting him, and she doesn't know who he is. And they have started like talking online outside of the game that they play and getting to know each other, and then eventually they realize who the other one is, and they have a really cute little romance together, and it's very tender. He's also like very good with her son and just like very sweet. He's also dealing with some shit because he is bi, and his parents are like totally against it, and he's trying to take care of his mom after his dad has passed, and his mom just treats him like absolute dog shit, and it's really sad. And his mom is like really homophobic and shitty, and so they're both navigating like a lot of shit in their personal lives, but they like really support each other emotionally. It's fabulous. I recommend it. This is another one nobody ever talks about, and I think this author has a newer book out as well. I don't think it's like in the same series, but I've been wanting to pick up that one as well, and that one's on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're on KU and you're looking for something, I would check out this author because her stuff is really cozy and cute and like fast and fun to get through, and I really enjoy it. And then next I wanted to recommend Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood. So this is one that is, I think, technically young adult, but the characters are like in their really early 20s, I think. And so it's kind of that like new adult, I guess. And we're following two characters who are chess players. And our main girl used to play chess with her dad. And then I think something happened. I can't remember if they got divorced or if her dad died or what exactly happened. But basically, she hasn't played chess for a very long time. And she is like hanging out with her friend in the park one day, you know, doing girly things. And she runs across this like open chess tournament thing. And her friend is like, you should do it. You know, we should both do it. And she's like, okay, whatever. And so she does. And she kicks everybody's ass and wins. And everybody is like, what? And it's a big deal because one of the guys that she beats is like the chess grand champion. And he's also a young guy. They're like the same age. And she just whoops his butt in front of God and everybody. And it gets in like the newspapers that she beat this man who's like the man in chess. And he is like, who is this girl? Like, I know nothing about her. She's hot. She just whooped my ass and handed it to me on a platter. And I need to know more about this woman. And so the story goes from there. But they end up competing in like the world championship of chess or whatever, and she gets invited because she kicked ass and took names in the park, and she ends up getting back into the world of chess. And it's kind of an emotional thing for her because it's something that she did with her dad, and so she has like a lot of emotions tied to it as well. And her mom is really struggling, and she like takes care of her mom and her little sister. So she's also got like stuff going on at home. And he, I think, is like a rich guy, and his family is like known for being really good at chess. And I think his like grandpa was a grandmaster too. So he's kind of got this old money thing going on. She's got like a regular messy family going on, and they have a little romance moment. And it's also kind of hate to love as well because she's like a fan of him, but they have like this rivalry thing going on too. Anyways, it's really good. The audiobook was really good, so I highly recommend that. And then I also wanted to recommend some historical romances as well. So I have a few here that I personally really love, and a lot of these I've talked about before, but the first one I want to recommend is Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. So this is book 1 in her Wallflowers series, and this whole series is so freaking good. And basically it's about this group of friends, and they are all what is considered like wallflowers. So they are like the girls who never get asked to dance at the ball. They all have like some family issues or like things about themselves that men don't like. Either they're like too outspoken, or they're too shy, or they're too whatever. And so this one is following Annabelle, and she ends up having a romance with this man, Simon Hunt, who is incredibly wealthy. And he has this reputation for being like a rogue, and he also was kind of like a self-made man as well, so he's very like new money, and people don't like that. And she has some like issues with her family too, I think, and so he ends up falling for her and trying to seduce her, and it's so good. Oh my god, their romance, so good. This right here, hello, the step back, this man right here, Simon Hunt, hot, stunning, love to see it. Anyways, their romance is so good. I love him. He is an entrepreneur, and he, is just like a broody London man, essentially. And he's not really a gentleman. He's kind of an asshole, to be frank. And she's very smart, very sweet, and she does not put up with his bullshit. And it's so good. Oh my god. And then there's another book in this series that I also really love. It's called Devil in Winter. And honestly, you can read them out of order. It doesn't really matter. Like, the other girls are mentioned, but, if you read one, you don't need to know who all the girls are in order to understand, like, that one girl's romance, because they are, like, isolated. Anyway, so the other one is following my favorite girl, Evie, and she ends up, basically having to run away from her family because they're trying to force her to marry her crusty cousin because they're trying to get her inheritance because her parents have died. And so she runs away from her creepy family, and she doesn't know what to do, so she goes to this guy's house because she knows, like, she needs to marry somebody else, like, now, otherwise her family is going to force her to marry her own cousin and steal all of her money and abuse her, essentially. So she knows that there's this rogue guy named Sebastian who nobody wants to marry because he's got a shitty reputation, but he has money, and like old money. But he is single and he needs a wife, but nobody wants to marry him because he's also like known for being a total ass. And so she goes to his house and basically says, look, I have a proposition for you. I have like a bunch of money that I'll get access to if I get married. And I'm in this like rough situation and we need to get married. And he is like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, it will benefit both of us. So they decide to do this, like, not a fake marriage, it's a real marriage, but marriage of convenience, basically. And so they run off to, I think it's Scotland, and get married in order to, like, get away from her family. And then they end up actually falling in love because, okay, I remember what's going on with her parents. So her mom is dead. Her dad was not in the upper class. He actually owns this, like, gambling den that's, like, really seedy and has a bad reputation. And her dad is dying. He's on his deathbed. Her mom's family is the one that tried to marry her off and steal her dowry and money and stuff. And so her mom's family hates her dad because her mom was wealthy and in the upper class, and she married for love and ran off and married Evie's dad. Well, her mom died when she was young, and her dad has been like in and out of her life, kind of. He's, not a bad guy, but has like a shady past and like wanted her to grow up as like a lady in London society. And so she's just wanting to be with him when he dies because she loves her dad. And her mom's family is like, no, you can't see your father. And she's like, fuck you, I'm not doing that. So she and Sebastian go and stay at her dad's gambling den while he's dying, and she's taking care of him. And Sebastian is looking around this gambling den, and he's a pretty sharp dude, and he has like a business mindset, and he's looking around realizing that there's like employees embezzling money, the business is like not doing very well, the building itself is like crumbling to pieces, and he's like, this could really be something if we could fix it up. And so he takes it upon himself to basically fix up the gambling den and like make it reputable and like a good business and everything like that. And so the two of them kind of team up to like make shit better, and they end up falling in love in the process. And it's so freaking good. He's an ass, but like in a hot way. Oh my god. It's so good. I ship them so hard. They're incredible. And then there's two other ones I wanted to recommend that are historicals. And so they're both by Tessa Dare in the same series. I think it's called the Castles Ever After series. So we have Romancing the Duke and Say Yes to the Marquess. So this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is a Cinderella retelling. This one is about a guy who had an injury a long time ago, and so he's got scars on his face. He's very broody. After his accident, he isolated himself in this castle, and then this woman gets notified one day that she's inherited a castle from this man who died. And she goes to the castle and she realizes that in fact this old duke, who everybody thought was dead, is still very much alive, and it's his castle as well. But apparently his advisors thought he was dead, and so they sold his castle, and then she inherited it from another person. And so he's like, this is my house, bitch, you can't take my castle. And she's like, well, I just officially got the papers to say it's mine, and so technically I can kick you out. And so they have all this beef going on. It's very Beauty and the Beast, him being very beastly, and she decides to come in and take care of him. And he's basically blind now because of the accident. And so she's realizing that he is blind, and she's trying to help him. And in this castle, there's like all this cool stuff. Like there's this Beauty and the Beast-esque library with like secret tunnels and doors, and so they're finding secrets within the castle. And she also has this funky backstory where her dad was a famous author and he wrote her into his books, and so everybody knows her as being this character from this book, and her dad was like super famous. Well, he went and squandered all of his money away, and so she's basically broke. And then her father died, and so she has nothing. And so she and this duke end up falling in love, and it's so tender. Oh my god, it's so good. The banter in here, god tier. Sexual tension, god tier. Love to see it. I loved this, and I listened to the audiobook. Highly recommend the audiobooks for this series because they're stunning and incredible. And then this one, Say Yes to the Marquess. Let me show you the step back. Honey. Love to see it. Basically, we're following this woman, Cleo, and she is in this family, and her mom is awful. Fat shames her all the time. Her sister, also awful. Totally a bitch. Fat shames her all the time. And she ends up being set up in this arranged marriage to this man, like a long time ago when they were kids. And he ended up going off and doing his own thing, and so they never got married. And so for years she's been like being strung along by this guy, and they write letters sometimes, but like she doesn't even really know him, and she can't marry anybody else because she's promised to him. Well, she's sick and tired of this bullshit, so she goes to his brother and says, hey, I want to break off this engagement to your brother because he's never going to actually marry me. And the younger brother, his name is Rafe, and he's a professional fighter, and he is very good at what he does, but he's very much like a rough and tumble guy. Like, his family is from high society, but he is kind of like shut out that whole world. And he remembers her because he grew up around her when they were kids, and he's always like been kind of into her, but she was promised to his brother, so he never like did anything about it. But now that she's come to him and said, hey, I want to break off the engagement, he's like, no, don't do that, like that's not a good idea, you know, let's plan the wedding, and I'll talk to my brother, and you know, we'll get you married, I promise. And so he's helping her plan this wedding that she doesn't even want to a man she's not in love with. And throughout the process of planning the wedding, you know, and picking the flowers and choosing a dress and yada, 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 the two of them fall in love. And Rafe, you know, doesn't know what to do. They have a kiss, and he's like, oh my God, I should not be kissing my brother's betrothed. But it does transpire, and there's an incredible scene in here where the two of them get into like a food fight with all of the cake samples, and it's just chef's kiss. Incredible. Love to see it. They have such good banter. He is a badass and she is really sassy and I love her. Oh my god, stunning. Love to see it. It's incredible. I love this one and it's so fun. And that's the thing about these two books, is they're just really, really fun historicals. So if you're looking for something to read, this is book 1 of the series, this is book 2. Again, you can read them interchangeably, it makes no difference, but they're both very good. Highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. And then I want to tell you about this other historical. It's called The Countess by Sophie Jordan. Sophie Jordan, if you can't tell, one of my faves. This is a newer series, and I believe book 2 is out. I'm not sure if book 3 has been announced yet. I'm sure it probably has, and I just haven't looked. But this one is about this lady named Lady Gertrude, and she is in this awful loveless marriage with this man who's a total piece of shit. And she has some kids, and her daughter is now like at the age where she can be married off. And basically, her nasty, crusty-ass husband tells her daughter, like, hey man, I'm gonna marry you off to the highest bidder because I want the money and I don't give a shit about you. And our main lady, Lady Gertrude, she goes by the name True, basically says, hell no, I want my daughter to marry for love. I had to marry for money and it didn't turn out so well for me. My husband is a drunk and he cheats on me all the time. And so she's trying to fight her husband on it. Well, her husband doesn't give a shit about her. And so she basically says, okay, she's gonna try and, find her daughter a love match. Meanwhile, her husband finds this really wealthy guy named Jasper Thorne, who he wants to court his daughter. And the mom is like, I don't know anything about this guy Jasper. He's like new money. He just kind of came into the scene and nobody knows anything about him. So she's looking into him and she ends up realizing that he's actually like kind of hot, and he's like closer to her age than the daughter's age. The daughter is really young, and so she ends up having a romance with her daughter's suitor, and that's the tea. And basically she's trying to figure out how to get out of this marriage that she's in so that she can be with Jasper. Meanwhile, to society, he's dating her daughter. Honey, it's so messy. It's so good. And he's so hot. Jasper's so hot. And our poor girl True has just been in the fucking gutter with her shitty ass husband. And Jasper makes her feel like alive and makes her feel loved and pretty. And he's super kind to her and he's funny and he's kind of a scoundrel as well. And he's just sassy. He's, oh my God. Love to see it. And she's also just like looking out for her daughter's best interests as well. Oh my God, it's so good. The end of this book, I was kicking my little feet, but I was also gagged by the shit that her husband pulls in this at the end. Oh my God, incredible. And then at the very end of this, there's also like a little like first chapter thing for the second book that's about True's friend who's a duchess, and that one came out in 2024. And I haven't read that one yet, but I did read like the first chapter thing in the back of this one for that second book. Honey, the tension in that one is going to be so good. So anyways, this series is definitely like one to look into if you're into historical romance, because it's written more recently, so I don't think a lot of people have like been tuned into it, but it's incredibly good. And also, look at these cute little like chapter headers with like the bubbly drinks and stuff. Oh, cute, 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 cute. I read this one last winter and really enjoyed it. It's also, I think, kind of got some winter vibes as well, so definitely recommend that. So if you made it to the end of this video and you just want to say hi, leave me a red heart emoji in the comments. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!